Is in here. I see you can hear me. Okay. Let me see. I'm looking at this. Okay. Marlon from Chi-Town, Rochelle, New Orleans, Patricia, Arlington, Texas. I see Houston for Faye Dawkins, Kendall and Karen, NYC Harlem World, B1 to you too. Anthony Cobbler, Deborah Slater Fearson, who lives in California. And we are going to talk about California because they're using the R word out there, that reparations word. And I think that there's a lot to discuss on that. Sean Degree from Charlotte. Rochelle says, I cannot hear you. Can you hear me? Give me a yes if you can hear me. Let me know if I'm coming through all right. Let me know if you can hear. Rochelle, you may have to turn your mic up if you, but can anyone else hear me? Let me know if you can hear me. Give me a yes if you can hear me. Okay, Eunice says, I can hear you. Fanny says, yes. Pamela Coakley, North Carolina, good to see you. Helen, Anita from Phoenix, Shay Brown, Faye Dawkins. Yeah, Phoenix, my wife is going to do she wants to do a retreat, a healing retreat in Phoenix in the wintertime. I'll keep you guys posted on that. And also, you guys know I'll be in Dallas next week, on May 19th. We're going to do a 2-day Black Wealth training camp, and it is a great opportunity to network with other like-minded wealth builders and a chance to get together with other people who think like you. So if you'd like to join us, just go to boycewatkins.com and you can get more information about the training camp and what we're going to cover, what we're going to do. I've got 100 slides that I try to get through, and I can never get through them all. So what we actually do is we finish online, but we're still going to, do as much as we can. All right, so let's jump in, and I want to start off in terms of before we start digging into Powernomics, I like to look at things that are happening right now and how they are connected to the things that we've been studying every week. As you guys know, we've been reading Powernomics every week for probably 2-3 years now. And basically, we are kind of sort of looking at the world differently because of that. Thank God for Dr. Claude Anderson. You can get copies of his books, by the way, at powernomics.com if you haven't got copies. Or if you have got copies, I hope you'll get others and give them away as Christmas gifts, birthday presents, stuff like that. And so I don't know if any of you saw what was going on with out there with this whole situation with Martin Luther King and Malcolm X today. So there was 2 topics. One is we're going to talk about the reparations issue, but the other one had to do with Dr. King. And apparently, I read this article today where effectively, does anybody know about the famous interview Dr. King did with Playboy magazine in 1965? Does anybody know about that? If you don't, it was a big deal. Dr. King laid out a lot of great ideas in that interview, and it was very interesting. And what effectively occurred was that in this interview, it says Malcolm did Playboy. Malcolm also did Playboy. Okay, I didn't know that. Yeah, but Dr. King did Playboy, and in this interview, they effectively found out that they lied in the interview, that there was a quote where Martin Luther King said something really terrible about Malcolm X. And basically they just concluded that like he never said that. And I thought that was really interesting, because Alex Haley did the interview. And honestly, it made me look at Alex Haley funny. It also made me look at Playboy magazine funny. And so what I thought I would do is kind of talk about that because, this relates to a couple of thoughts I have in terms of things that I've seen myself up close in terms of the manipulation that can occur and how there are those who will plan for the disruption of any form of significant Black leadership. You don't have a leadership void in the Black community just by happenstance. You have a leadership void that was artificially created through propaganda. A lot of the leadership void is heavily driven by who controls the media, who controls things like the school systems, stuff like that. Adolf Hitler used to use media all the time to create his propaganda against the Jewish community. And so the same things that were done to other countries and other places were done to you. And so basically, just to kind of summarize, I'm going to see if I can find the article because I think it's really worth talking about as we kind of start our Powernomics discussion, because this is in the belly of the beast. I mean, this is directly linked to everything that we talk about, every single week. And I think it's better to talk about it in terms of real things that actually happen and real examples so that we can really understand what you're up against and the degree of the depth of the sinister nature of those who want to see you fail, who don't want to see your movements continue. So let me see, I'm opening it up here. I'm trying to see what I can find here. Let me see if I can search for this in Apple News. So let me see here. Hold on. Let me pop this in here. All right, here we go. So what they're saying here in the UK Guardian is they're saying that this famous quote by Dr. King that was in Playboy magazine, where he literally said he accused Malcolm X of fiery demagogic oratory, and he also said he's doing a disservice to the Black community. And they went through, a guy did the research, thank God for him, and he went through the actual transcripts of Alex Haley's interview with Martin Luther King, and just said, in the transcripts, there's nothing there where Dr. King says any of that. He definitely didn't. When he talked about Malcolm, he said none of these things. And this is another stain on Alex Haley's legacy, because Alex Haley's also been accused of significant amounts of plagiarism. And let me see if I can find. Let me drill down deeper in terms of finding the quote that they attributed to him and the quote that he actually made. Okay, so here's what Dr. King said. They said, Dr. King, would you care to comment upon the articulate former Muslim Malcolm X? King responded, I have met Malcolm X, but circumstances didn't enable me to talk to him for more than a minute. I totally disagree with many of his political and philosophical views, as I understand them. He is very articulate, as you say. I don't want to seem to sound as if I feel so self-righteous or absolutist that I think I have the only truth, the only way. Maybe he does have some of the answer. But I know that I have so often felt that I wish that he would talk less of violence, because I don't think that violence can solve our problem. And in his litany of expressing the despair of the Negro without offering a positive, creative approach, I think that he falls into a rut sometimes. Okay, so do you think did that sound like a hardcore diss? Like, did that sound like some Biggie Pac, like, I can't stand you, like, remember Tupac, he said, I slept with your wife and you ain't nothing, right? Does that sound as inflammatory as Biggie Pac, East Coast, West Coast beef, or did that just sound like Dr. King disagrees respectfully with Malcolm X? What do you think? All right, yes or no? Okay, I see a lot of no's, and I agree with you. So here, I want to find the original quote, though. The original quote is the one that I want you to hear, that they actually put in the magazine. Let's see it. Come on. Where is the quote? All right, let me see. Hold on. Let me see if I can find it. They're talking about it, but they're not. Okay, they said, well, let me just read here. They said, that is not how King's response appeared in the published interview. While the top part is nearly identical with the transcript, here's how Playboy ended it. Here we go. They said, this is all made up. Dr. King did not say any of this. They said, and in his litany of articulating the despair of the Negro without offering any positive, creative alternative, I feel that Malcolm has done himself and our people a great disservice. Fiery demagogic oratory in the Black ghettos, urging Negroes to arm themselves and prepare to engage in violence, as he has done, can reap nothing but grief. That's the quote that they attributed to Dr. King that he did not say. Now, what they do say is that when they talk about the first part, I feel that Malcolm has done himself and our people a great disservice. They say King does not say this or anything similar anywhere in the 84-page interview transcript. Secondly, fiery demagogic oratory in the Black ghettos, urging Negroes to arm themselves and prepare to engage in violence. They said King says this phrase much earlier in the transcript on page 12, and it was in answer to this question. The question was, Dr. King, what is your opinion of Negro extremists who advocate armed violence and sabotage? So King gave a lengthy response that begins with, fiery demagogic oratory in the Black ghettos, urging Negroes to arm themselves and prepare to engage in violence can achieve nothing but negative results. So even that part, let me see. So even that part, when they said reap nothing but grief, he didn't even say reap nothing but grief. He said negative results, but he wasn't even talking about Malcolm X when he said that. And then that other part where he says, as he has done, They quote him as saying, as Malcolm has done, basically. They say King does not name Malcolm X as any example of fiery demagogic oratory anywhere in the transcript. Can reap nothing but grief. The phrase does not appear in the transcript. So here's where I'm going to stand on this. Here's what I believe. First of all, I look at Alex Haley with a lot more suspicion now, because again, he was already accused of plagiarism. Now this happens. I'm trying to figure out, were you trying to be creative? Were you trying to make yourself relevant by stirring up a beef amongst two of or trying to stir up a beef anyway, amongst two of the greatest Black leaders of that time? What was going on here? But then here's another thing I want to share with you based on my own experience. I don't know everything, but I've seen a couple of things. And I was in Los Angeles, and I got a ride to the airport by this Uber driver who was driving an electric Cadillac, a very nice electric Cadillac. And he was an older white guy. And this guy told me he used to be a driver for Hugh Hefner. And in his experience as a driver for Hugh Hefner, he said he also had a lot of interactions with Bill Cosby through the years. And he said that, if I were to compare the number of things that I saw Hugh Hefner do to the number of things that Bill Cosby is accused of doing, he said there is no comparison. He said Hugh Hefner was 100 times worse. And he also said something that really made me think. He kind of came out like, I'm surprised. I have no idea how he avoided being charged or being held accountable for any of the things that he did. So what that made me think about was I started to see Hugh Hefner in the same vein as a Jeffrey Epstein. Jeffrey Epstein, if you recall, was an agent. He was an agent of Mossad in Israel. There's a lot of evidence to say that. And what Epstein was doing was he had Epstein Island, similar to the Playboy Mansion, which was a place like a playground for grown men who wanted to hang out with lots of women. So I wonder if Hugh Hefner was connected or in bed with the CIA or the FBI. Because remember, Hugh Hefner also gets a lot of credit for hanging out with lots of Black people and hanging out with lots of civil rights leaders. And he wasn't a quote unquote ally. But I wonder, was he an ally or was he an agent? Nobody knows. I mean, if I'm an agent, I want to be an ally. I'm not saying Hefner was an agent. I'm saying that this makes me wonder. I want to know who went out of their way to put words in Dr. King's mouth that he did not actually use. Who did that? How did that happen? Because when they do these things, they create these divides that end up dismantling the leadership. That it's just terrible. And you guys, give me 1 second. Hold that thought for half a second. Honestly, my mama needs me to grab something real quick, and let me go check on my mama. So I hope that's all right if I go check on my mama real quick. I love y'all, but I love my mama. I love my mama a little bit. That's my mama. But I'll be right back. Hold on. All right. Okay, I'm back. Mama's taken care of, so thank you for letting me take care of my mama. I appreciate that. All right, so with this whole situation, I really got suspicious. I said, "Oh my God!" This is an example of how deep and sinister things were. A lot of you don't know this, and we're going to start reading Powernomics, but I think it's very important to put it into context because that helps us learn better. Is when you see real life examples of the things that we're talking about. So one of the things that I am convinced of is that over the last 100 years or more, there have always been consistent efforts to undermine or distract any significant movements within the Black community. And also, I believe in the 1960s, the civil rights movements and Dr. King, Malcolm X, all of that was seen as a problem because there was, in my view, some communist infiltration in all of that. If you look at even the Black Panthers and they had a lot of communist, socialist, Marxist ideas that were the underbelly of some of their pro-Black rhetoric, right? It doesn't mean that it was bad, doesn't mean that communism or Marxism is bad, but it makes me wonder who introduced you to those ideas. And I remember in Chicago one time when I was, I got a phone call from some people who said, we're going to have a protest for Mike Brown. Remember, Mike Brown got shot by the cops. And they said, Dr. Cornel West said we should call you. And I said, well, Cornell's my buddy. I love Cornell. Of course, what can I do? So I went to this protest to go and, and support the whole Mike Brown thing. And it was white people. I didn't care if you were white or black. I mean, we were on the same page. Well, the funny thing was, it didn't take me long to realize that this was like a communist recruiting station. Like this was they started handing me all this, communist literature, and everybody was calling each other comrade and all this other stuff. And I ain't got nothing against communism. I mean, people can be whatever they want to be, but I didn't want to be a communist. I was like, I got enough problems. I'm already a black man. I ain't trying to be a communist and a black man at the same time. Plus, I'm a finance professor. What I look like trying to be a communist? So some of the Marxist ideas are not bad ideas. I think you can learn a lot from studying all the different ideologies. Karl Marx's critique of capitalism was 100% on point. The point where I get off the bus is, number one, I don't want to pick too many battles at once. I'm fighting the black battle. I'm not fighting the communist battle, right? I'm not going to let blackness become a proxy war for the global battle between communism and capitalism, because that's what destroyed Vietnam. They became a proxy war for the battle between the U.S. and the USSR, and it destroyed Vietnam, just like it's destroying the black community. But then number two, I don't think that Karl Marx had a good solution, a good alternative to the capitalist system. I like the idea of being able to go out and start a business and generate wealth within certain constraints. So anyway, my point is to say that I think there's always agents around. There's always agents among us. I think that even if you look at what occurred during the pandemic, or if you see ridiculous chaos happening on the internet, I started picking up on that. A great brother named Dr. Anthony Browder, who I will just shout out for the rest of my life because I just love this guy. He, Professor James Small, some of my favorite people. I love talking to really cool black men who can really teach me some things. So Anthony Browder and I bumped into each other on a flight from Guyana. And on this flight, it was really weird because me, him, and Nuri Muhammad, another amazing guy, were all on the same flight, and we didn't even know we were all on the same flight. And I got kind of nervous. I said, did somebody set this up? Are they going to blow up this airplane? But anyway, we were talking, and one thing that Browder mentioned that I hadn't thought about that I think is worth repeating is he said, you got to be careful. He said, in the 70s, when we were doing our movements, we didn't realize that they had agent provocateurs who were just designed. Their role was to create confusion. Their role was to get us to just fight each other, and then you don't even know who's right, who's wrong. So people just look at it, they say all of them are crazy. We're gonna just get away from all that because those conscious people, they out of their dang mind, right? And that goes back to that old saying that says when two people are fighting, they both look like idiots from a distance. So one thing that conversation with Browder did for me back in 2017 was I made that commitment to you guys online. I said, you're not going to see me fighting with black people on the internet. They can say what they want. They can attack. They can scream and holler. They can say whatever they want. They can make a million videos, and they have. And I don't respond to any of them. I don't watch them. It's like, you know what? If you disagree with me, go over in the corner. You scream and holler, but you're going to be hollering at yourself. I'm not going to get distracted. So effectively, I think that is a good lesson for us as we're trying to build and develop movements, is you cannot get distracted. Because the same way that I believe that there was some governmental interference, I think that there was a hidden hand in that interview. I need to know, Alex, were you the one? Was it Hugh Hefner? Were you working with Hugh? Like, what's happening? And what's interesting, here's the thing about Dr. King that makes him such a great leader, in my opinion, is he didn't get distracted. They said, well, what did Dr. King say when they found out he was misquoted? And they say he didn't say anything because he didn't even go look at the interview. He wasn't the kind of guy that would say, oh, they're talking about me in Playboy magazine. Let me see what they said about me. He was trying to do the work. He was all about the mission, right? And that's what you got to do. Like you have so many people that are what I call the civil rights superstars. They want to be seen. They want to be at the NAACP Image Awards. They want to take pictures with celebrities, and all that's fine. I mean, Dr. King has pictures with celebrities, but Dr. King always understood that the work is what makes everything you do relevant. If you're not doing the work and remaining focused on the work, then you'll get distracted by all these other side issues. So he and Malcolm, to me, were great leaders because of that. They just had this sort of commitment and purity of purpose. They were very consistent on a daily basis. And if you want to know sort of what standard I kind of look at when I say, okay, how can we all be more effective here? I think about that, right? And also other great people like Dr. Claude Anderson and others. We've got to stay focused. We got to do the work. So that was the one of the thoughts that I wanted to share as we kind of get started and start reading. And then in a little bit, what we're also going to do is we're going to talk a little bit about reparations. How many of you have been following the whole conversation about reparations? Give me a yes if you've been following the whole discussion about reparations being paid, whether or not California is going to go through with it. Well, to give you an update, in case you don't know, there was a committee in California that came to the conclusion that Black people deserve 1.2 million each for reparations. I thought that was beautiful. I wanted to give them a hug. I think it's awesome. Good for you. Good job. Immediately, the backlash was almost immediate. The governor of California, Gavin Newsom, your ally, he's already come out and said, I don't support cash payments. He said he supports things like government programs. And so in some ways, in some veins, he sounds very similar to that Amos Brown guy who was the head of the NAACP in San Francisco, who also said, we don't want people to get cash payments. We want government programs. And the reason that people want government programs instead of giving the money and the power directly to you is because when they have government programs, they make sure they don't remove the middleman. You see, there are so many people who make millions of dollars just by being the middleman to the Black community. You have Black leaders who literally, and I've seen it up close. They will gather a following of Black people that listen to them, and then they'll go to the establishment, the white political leaders, and they'll say, I've got X number of Negroes that I can deliver to you, just like I deliver KFC chickens to a restaurant. I got so many Negroes I can deliver to you to the polls, but you got to pay me first, right? You got to pay me first. So they put themselves in the role of the middleman. This includes some of your civil rights leaders. I'm not going to name any names, so I'm not trying to get into that. This includes some of your civil rights organizations. You have organizations that operate in that same way, where they pretty much do the same thing. And, and I really think that the reparations movement has to be a little bit different. By the way, one of you said you can't hear me. Give me a yes if you can hear me. I'm sorry, I got to pause and do a quick audio check. Can you hear me? Give me a yes in the chat if you can hear me okay. I want to make sure everybody can hear me. All right. So let me hit a button to make sure. Okay. All right. I think my audio is good. I'm just testing it. Can you, okay. So everybody can hear me. Okay, good. All right. So effectively, with this reparations conversation, we achieved the first objective. The first objective was to just make it into a conversation. Before, there was a mandate amongst all of your liberal allies to not even ever say the word reparations ever anywhere under any circumstances for any reason. Julianne Malveaux came onto my YouTube channel and did an interview, and she discussed the time where she interviewed, because she's part hood, part bougie. Julianne, if you know Julianne, she can be as ghetto as the rest of them, but she's as bougie and educated as you can be. So super smart. She has a PhD in economics from MIT. I love Julianne. She's like a sibling to me. I love Julianne Malveaux to the end of the earth and back. And so Julianne came by, and she spilled the beans on an interview that she did with Barack Obama years ago, because she's connected to the bougie types, the people that I don't really hang out with so much. They set up an interview with her and Barack. And so she's interviewing Barack, and she asked him about reparations. And she said that instantly Barack ended the interview. He instantly said, this interview's over. And that's fine, and I get it, right? This is not a Barack bashing conversation here, because I understand, right? He was under certain constraints. If he wanted to be president of the United States, it would be almost impossible for him to talk about reparations and still become president. So I equate it to a fundamental problem that we have in the Black community. The reason you can't acquire freedom is because you don't have freedom. And I know that sounds paradoxical, but you hear me out. The reason you can't acquire freedom is because you don't have freedom. And what do I mean by that? Well, it's like if I see my cousin, and I know my cousin loves me, and my cousin wants to hook me up and wants to do the right thing by me, but my cousin is working at Home Depot, and I say, hey, cuz, I need a shovel. And he says, okay, it's going to be $8. And I say, well, I don't have $8. Can you go get me a shovel? Well, then he has a hard decision. He might be like, man, I want to get you a shovel, but they got the cameras on me. And if I get seen taking a shovel, I'm going to lose my job. So as a result, I don't get what I need. Even though my cousin wants to give it to me, he can't give it to me. Why? Well, because he's an employee at Home Depot. He does not own a shovel. Now, if he owned a shovel, if he had that freedom where to decide what to do with the shovel, if he was an actual economic stakeholder instead of an economic babysitter. An economic babysitter is someone who is babysitting someone else's resources. An economic stakeholder is a person who actually owns something. If he actually owned the shovel, he could give me a shovel, right? But or if I'm hungry and I see my cousin, he's working at Burger King, I say, hey man, give me a burger, I'm hungry. And he says, hey man, I want to feed you, but I can't because the cameras are on me and I'll get in trouble, I'll lose my job. So then I go hungry, even though he wants to feed me. Well, if he grew his own food, he can feed me as much as he wants to feed me. So what tends to happen is that when you have freedom, there is a direct connection between what you do and what you want to do, right? Your interests are aligned with your actions. What you want to see occur is actually what occurs. It's not like you're saying, I want to go left, but I got to go right because Massa Boss is telling me I got to go in the direction that he's telling me to go. So Barack Obama, as much as we might admire him as a leader and everything else, and I think he was a great president as far as white guys go, I think he did a great job. He represented himself well. He's very intelligent. He has a beautiful family, but he's not a Black leader in the most effective sense. Why? Well, because Barack didn't have the fundamental ingredient for authentic Black leadership. He did not have freedom. He did not have freedom. So just like the Burger King employee, it doesn't matter how much food you have in the back. You might have enough food in the back to feed the whole hood 85 times, but it don't matter if your boss won't let you use the food for what you think it needs to be used for. So they've taken something that could be 100% effective and made it only 5% effective because they're only letting you give the scraps to your family. They're letting you give the leftovers to the people that you care about. So the part of what I want you to understand is that the best leaders in the Black community are not the people on TV. They're not the politicians that are in office. These people can't they can't show up for you because they're so indebted to other people. If I've already filled my schedule up with 85 things I have to do for other people, I can't do nothing for you because I'm too busy. I'm already locked up and occupied, right? So that's what happens. Like, think about it like a bad parent. A bad parent might say, look, I really want to spend time with my kids, but I can't because I have a full schedule and a full-time job and a million other things to do. A good parent is somebody who says, sweetie, I cleared out half my day just for you. I have no commitments to anybody. I've turned off my phone. I am here for you. Whatever you want to do, you want to get ice cream, we'll go get ice cream. You want to go to the park, we're going to go to the park. That's a good dad. That's a good mother, right? So the question in my view is to ask us, how many people do we have in America that are both powerful and free? And then the third ingredient, that actually give a damn about Black people. Powerful, free, and committed. If they're powerful, free, and committed, that person can be 100 times more effective than the person that you might see being elevated and promoted by white people on TV. So it's almost it's no different from a company or an asset. Like if you're a lady, and let's say you're like I was joking with my friends about this Ebony K. Williams thing about women wanting to date the man who owns the bus. And the truth of reality is that there's honestly a lot of women who feel that way. A lot of women just feel like, hey, I don't really want to date a bus driver. It doesn't mean that you're a bad person. It just means you got to find your girlfriend on the bus. You can go, and I don't think it's bad. I think it's, I think people have their preferences. They have a right to want whatever they want. But when you get into that whole conversation, I think I've seen people get duped though. I've seen people that will show up and pretend like they have lots of resources. They'll show you a nice car. They'll show you a nice house. They'll show you lots of cash in their pocket and nice clothes and everything else. But what you don't understand is that what's really going to give you the information you need is how much of those assets are owned by you versus how much of those assets are owned by the bank. Because if you have all the nicest stuff in the world and all that's owned by the bank, then that means that the bank can come by and take all that stuff away at any time, right? You don't really own anything. And so effectively, a lot of the people that you see the most, the ones you identify as your leaders, are people who are basically looking like they have lots of assets, but those assets are owned by the bank. In America, the bank is white supremacy. The bank is the white man, right? So they give him a little bit of money, prop him up. You think he's some magical Negro. You're expecting all these things for him, and he can't give those things to you. He's just like trying to date, like a woman trying to date a man who's married with 4 kids, who's already devoted to his spouse and his children. He ain't gonna be your husband. He's not gonna. You better go ahead and date the bus driver, because at least he might be available. The guy who owns the bus might already be spoken for on so many levels that he ain't got time for you anyway, right? So effectively, that's what I see. That's what I'm thinking in terms of leadership. I'm going to say this too. I think when it comes to reparations, my statement on reparations has been very simple, and I'm not telling anybody to agree with me. I'm just telling you where I stand. My position on reparations is no reparations, no vote. No reparations, no vote. No reparations, no vote. No reparations, no vote. That's literally that. Anytime anybody brings that up about voting in the next election, I'm going to say no reparations, no vote. Why is that not a crazy thing to say? I know people are going to say that's extreme. People are going to say that that's just rude. People are going to say that's destructive. That's disrespectful to your ancestors because they died for you to have the right to vote. Well, they also died for me the right to have reparations, asshole. Excuse my French. I'm not going to cuss no more, I promise. But they died for me to have a birthright. They died for me to have some wealth. That they also died for that because you killed them and took all their land. You took all their money. You took all their resources. So I think that if they had a choice between giving me the right to vote or the right to own some land and property and everything else, they would say, get your land and property, and then we'll also make sure you get your political rights too. Why can't I have both? So let me read some of this to you. Dr. Anderson talks about the basis of a Black political party in Powernomics on page 214. Now, as I open this up, some of you were asking about Dallas. Yeah, I'll be in Dallas May 19th. So if you'd like to join us in Dallas, May 19th for the Black Wealth Training Camp, go to boycewatkins.com. Also, the dates for the All Black National Convention are October 20th through the 22nd. It's going to be in Atlanta at the Marriott Marquis Hotel. You can go to boycewatkins.com if you either want to apply to be a panelist. We're looking for just brilliant people that have great ideas that want to be on a panel. Just please, if you're crazy, don't apply if you're crazy. But if you are, if you're committed and you have something good to say, feel free to apply, because we'd love to get our panelists from our audience, not people that are on TV. We don't care about all that. And then also there's another link where you can actually get your passes, and you just go to boycewatkins.com and it's all there. All right, so let me see here. Hold on, here we go. Here is, this is on page 214 in Powernomics. Powernomics.com is Dr. Anderson's website. I hope that you'll support him. He gives political action step number 10. Now, I'm skipping number 9, because number 9 is about using the electoral voting options to bypass elected officials and political institutions. But actually, let me read a little bit. I'm going to kind of skip forward. I'm not going to read every single word. But he says, one of the biggest political failings of Black America over the last half century is that it's been too quiet. The majority society began implementing its benign neglect policy in the early 1970s. That's when they basically decided that we're just going to ignore Black people. This public policy, which declared Black Americans an obsolete and abandoned labor force, shifted white society's moral commitments from blacks to gender, class, ethnic, and language groups. Blacks seem politically paralyzed by this unexpected shift, with Black leadership leading the shift, then later seeking to ally with the new class of minorities that they had created. A problem arose. In any competitive environment, an individual or group that is non-competitive is sure to become extinct. Black Americans are leaderless for all practical purposes. Now, this is a problem. You're a leaderless community that's going into one of the most critical public debates in the history of this country. Reparations, do you understand that you have people that are now dead who spent 50 years fighting for reparations? They're now dead. And it is a disservice for those individuals who fought like hell to get this conversation on the table for us to drop the stick right now. Well, you are a leaderless community in terms of Negroes that are on TV, but you're not leaderless in this space. You are all Black leaders. Every single one of you is an intelligent Black person capable of making your own decisions. So if you are the head of a household, then you are a Black leader. If you have a vision for your future, you are a Black leader. If you care about your community, in my view, you are a Black leader. So we're not a leaderless community in a pure factual sense. but we come off as leaderless in terms of people that are on Capitol Hill or people that are on TV and all this other stuff. But the community itself has a pulse. The community itself has ideas. And I see those ideas, and people are starting to hear those ideas. Even Stacey Abrams started to kind of hashtag the word reparations because she was hearing from all the people, all of you, on social media, on YouTube, everywhere else, just saying, this is BS. We need to talk about what you owe us. So let me keep reading. He says, Black Americans must again become active and force those holding public office to be responsible to the needs and concerns of Black people. We need to initiate more direct action, whether we exercise electoral voting options, alter consumer patterns, or even use forms of civil disobedience. For example, we used boycotts and civil disobedience reasonably well generations ago. These acts can still grab the public's attention, but they become wasted efforts when there are no tangible goals and follow-up activities. He says, let's see, there are a number of special voting rights that are tools we can use to accomplish our political will, such as voter referenda, initiatives, recalls, public hearings, selective withdrawal of patronage, lawsuits, and ballot write-ins. We should employ these special electoral devices to counteract laws, public policies, or public office holders who conflict with our interests. And one thing that he mentioned a little bit further on page 212 in Powernomics is he talks about, let me see if I can find it. I got to find this point where he talks about, oh, here we go. He says that Black people can actually withhold our votes. He actually talks about abstaining here. So let me see here. Let me scoot back and let me read here. It says, if, for instance, a Black minister or local official persuades the Black community to support a candidate, they should be held responsible for making sure that the candidate honors commitments made to the Black community. So when that pastor brings whoever is running for office to the church and they're eating barbecue chicken with the pastor, and the pastor says, vote for this person, then the pastor's the one who's accountable for whether that person does their job. It is also effective to turn the same attention to the elected officials' financial supporters. Applying the rule, don't treat any person or group better than they treat you. Black voters can orchestrate economic sanctions or withdraw their patronage from companies and products until they hold the candidate accountable. Even if Blacks intend to withhold their votes, they should still register to vote because only voting provides access to those to these special voters' rights. Armed with these, so he's saying that even if you don't vote, register so that they know that your vote is available if they act right. Let's see here. In the real sense, however, our country's majority rule voting system is a charade when public policies make Black people a permanent minority. The concept of majority rules is an expedient but misleading and imperfect expression of equality of opportunity. If laws and social customs placed 6 whites and 1 Black in a room and gave them the right to vote on issues and candidates, and if the 6 whites agreed to vote as a skin color, only for white candidates and white issues, it is a cruel joke in a democratic society to tell the 1 Black person that he has an equal opportunity to vote and run for office. This is one of your problems. A lot of times what we think is just, flat out racism or white people just, deciding that they want to hate us or oppress us. A lot of times it's just cultural dominance, right? So like when you go to work, and you're the only Black person on the factory floor, and out of like 80 people that are working, then basically their culture is going to drive how things get done. And so what I learned was that one way for me to be safe in terms of work environment was to get into spaces where people like me were dominant, right? So for example, in this space, a white guy can't come in and engage in any form of white supremacy in this space. Why? Well, because it's our space. We would just shut them down really, really fast, right? So it doesn't mean you can't be white and hang out here. There are white people that come in here because they're really trying to do the right thing, and I respect that. I have no problem with that. But in this space, they're not going to come in here trying to change how we do things, right? Because this is our space. So I think that really talking to your kids and training them on how to create a space that's theirs is extremely important instead of going to spaces where you're not wanted. When you go into spaces where you're not wanted, you know what you become? You're begging people to accept you and begging people to like you and begging people to let you in. You know what you sound like? Anybody remember that song? Remember Jennifer Hudson and Dreamgirls? And Jamie Foxx's character tried to lead, not R.I.P., but prayers up to Jamie Foxx. I hope he gets better. But Jamie Foxx was his character. He was trying to leave the lady, Effie White. And remember, she started singing, and what did she sing? She was like, no, 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 no way. I'm living without you. I'm staying. I'm staying. I don't want to be free. Right? That's what Black people sound like. We're like, I'm staying. I'm staying. No, I'm not living without you. I don't want to be free. That's what we do. We will sit there and bang down the door and beg white people to let us in. Let us into the Oscars. Let us into the Grammys. Let us into your business. Let us into your schools. And I find that to be kind of pathetic, to be honest with you, and kind of weird. Right? Any lady who ever sings a song like that to you fellas, like, you better run, because she might show up and do a murder suicide or something. So you don't mess with it. Don't ever date a person who sings a song like that in a relationship, because that person has self-esteem issues. Anybody who says, I don't want to be free, no way I'm living without you, that's crazy, right? So that's kind of what we are. We have this love. Maybe it's a Stockholm syndrome or something like that, or maybe we're seeking guidance, right? We almost maybe look at them in a paternalistic way. They see themselves as our parents. We see them as our parents. That we need them to build companies so we can get jobs instead of us building and running the companies. But either way, we have to really think about that and really ask ourselves, what are we doing to contribute to white supremacy? I think it's a two-way street. I think we're all contributing to that. So anyway, so Dr. Anderson also says that the ultimate voting option Black people have is to call for a boycott of a national election. Let me read that again. This is page 213, Powernomics, second paragraph. He says the ultimate voting option Black people have is to call for a boycott of a national election to dramatize the dilemma of Black voters and the futility they feel when they vote. No reparations, no vote. No reparations, no vote. No reparations, no vote. Worse, with each passing day and each newly arriving legal and illegal immigrant, the Black voting power becomes more and more insignificant. When Blacks are bumped from a majority minority to a minority in a couple of years by Hispanics, then later by Asians, remember he wrote this 30 years ago, Black Americans' votes will become strictly an exercise in futility. Blacks' best hope is to act today to dramatize their plights in hopes of changing the immigration laws or weighing their votes. Otherwise, Black Americans can soon forget about voting. So you will show up and you will vote. You will be proud of yourself. You'll get a little sticker that says, I voted, and nothing will change. Nothing will change. Now, I'm not telling you what to do. I'm not into that. I'm telling you what I'm going to do. If I vote for you, I must receive something. And the thing I want to receive the most is reparations. So my motto that you're going to hear me say 18,000 times is no reparations, no vote. No reparations, no vote. Feel free to type it in the chat if you agree. If you don't agree, that's okay. It's all right. But that's where I'm at. No reparations, no vote. If there's ever a time to boycott, why not now? And the thing that where they do you a disservice with the propaganda and the mind control is that there are people who will get on TV and allow you to believe that abstaining is just insanity, that only a fool would not vote. You a sucker if you don't vote. Something's wrong with you if you don't vote. People don't understand. Go talk to any political scientist and they will explain to you that abstaining is a very legitimate political strategy. It happens all the time. I could show examples of news stories where Democrats, let's say, were outvoted on an issue and they knew their vote wasn't going to change anything. It might be gun laws or something. And the Democrats said, we're not voting because we just want to make a point. We know you're going to win anyway, but we're not going to participate in this charade. So we're not even going to vote. You know, it's just like a basketball game. If I know the game is rigged, I might say, I'm just not going to play. I'm not even stepping on the court because I know what's going to happen because you've already set the game up so you can win. So me participating in this game only legitimizes the fraud that you are about to pursue right now. I'm not legitimizing any of it. You can still get what you want, but you're going to get it with people knowing that I saw through what you were doing and I'm not participating in the nonsense. So again, not telling anybody what to do. That's where I'm at. He says a dramatized boycott of a national election could call attention to the fact that Blacks may be legally able to vote, but the political candidates and parties are not willing to address the issues and injustices committed against Black people. And worse, their votes are used as a swing vote to help one political party or the other win an office, but never in exchange for benefits for the race. So you are important as a swing. That's power. You have the power of deciding if the Democrats or the Republicans are going to win the election. That's awesome. You're one of the last voting blocks in this country. That's a lot of power. But power only matters if you use it. And if you use it, you should probably use it to your own benefit instead of using it to the benefit of others. So Dr. Anderson is saying that a boycott of a national election would be powerful in terms of drawing attention to the issues. He says once the election is over, they are again forgotten when then trotted out for the next close election. An electoral boycott would communicate to blacks and whites throughout the United States that blacks will not play a game in which they can neither win nor benefit. It would communicate to international circles that America is the cradle of democracy for everybody but black people. Shout out to Dr. Claude Anderson. Type Powernomics in the chat. We love you, man. This is beautiful. I love this guy. All right, so let's keep reading. This is Powernomics. His book is at powernomics.com. I hope you'll support him. I keep begging y'all to do that because this man is he's given us everything. I want to support him back. So here's political action step number 10, Powernomics, page 214. He says, compete with the two major political parties by forming a national Black independent party as an alternative voting channel. In national politics, there is a long-held common belief that regardless of how this nation's political parties treat Black American voters, they accept it because they have no alternative. Black voters are unwanted political pawns. For over a century, one political party rejected Blacks while the other national party tolerated their membership. Blacks were spectators whose sole contribution was limited to a swing vote in a close race between white candidates. But contrary to common belief, Black voters do have somewhere to go. They can join the half of this nation's eligible voters who simply refuse to vote. Or Black voters can turn the tables on the two national parties, and instead of waiting to be used, rejected, or tolerated, Blacks can do the rejecting. Black votes may be irrelevant, but if we apply the principles of ethno-aggregation, we can create some alternatives. Though a divorce proceeding has yet to be announced, the marriage between the Democratic Party and Black America, which was consummated in the 1940s, is on the rocks. The Democratic Party has been the base of loyal Black voters. The Democratic Party downgraded Black rights and took up every ethnic, class, gender, and language issue group, regardless of their party affiliations. The Democratic Party and Black civil rights leaders brought down an array of minority and women competitors upon the backs of Blacks before they had a chance to catch up from centuries of slavery and Jim Crow segregation. So what he's saying right there is that they started dropping all these other groups on you, started watering down all the policies on you before you even had a chance to catch your breath from slavery and Jim Crow. Before you had a chance to get back on your feet, they said, here are the immigrants, here's LGBT, here's white women, and you carrying all that on your back. All these civil rights initiatives that were designed for you end up going to the benefits of so many other people. I think that is wrong. I think that is wrong. That is not good at all for Black people, and it's not good for you to accept that. Let's keep going. So he says, what can the Democratic and Republican parties do for Black people in the 21st century? Contrary to the advice of traditional civil rights liberals who encourage Black voters to stay in a failed marriage and conservatives who advocate that Blacks divide themselves between the two national parties, thus diluting their voting power, Black voters should reject both options. Instead, Black voters must ethno-aggregate and become totally independent, forcing both parties to court them. And God bless Ice Cube, because that's exactly what Ice Cube was trying to do. That's what, he was doing exactly what I've always wanted rappers to do, which is to use your platform to do something that's going to benefit the community in a meaningful way and convince us to do something other than kill ourselves and buy Gucci bags. And Ice Cube did that. He did that. And I respect that with political maturity he showed. This ethno-aggregation, forcing both parties to court you. I want you to pay attention. Let's go back to when Ice Cube was working on getting more for Black people, and he was getting courted by both parties in a different way. I was talking to him a lot during that time, and let me tell you what was going on with the Democrats and the Republicans. It was just like a bad relationship. The Democrats were acting like the pimp who believes that he's entitled to the woman, right? The pimp just thinks, well, that's been my girl since forever. How dare you take something away from me that belongs to me? This is not cool. I feel disrespected. What's wrong with you? The Republicans were like, they acted like the guy who's always been in the friend zone, who finally might get a chance to get the girl. So the Republicans are showing up, bringing flowers, making all kinds of promises that they probably weren't going to keep. They were returning all of his calls. The Biden administration really wasn't. And it kind of became this interesting scenario that's no different from any relationship that, or certain relationships that you might have been in your own life. Now, what I liked about it, though, was he created a scenario where both political parties understood that they could not take Black people for granted. So they were both sort of engaged in the discussion in their own kind of way. Right? The Democrats were engaged in a way of saying, like, how dare you? Like, why are you breaking up the family? Well, you know, what you're doing is terrible, right? Just like a man who's been abusing his wife and the wife decides to leave, and then he starts to guilt trip her and say, well, you know, the kids don't have anybody to get them ready for school, and you abandoning the family, and why are you messing up a good thing we got going on? Well, because you shouldn't have been beating up your wife, you idiot. That's why she don't want to be around you, right? But then the new person, the new guy, is the one who's gonna sort of go above and beyond, make a bunch of promises, and do whatever he can because he's trying to get that opportunity that he never had before. So in that scenario, when you get two opposing parties that are both competing for your attention, guess who ends up winning that negotiation? It's the person in the middle. It's like right now, for example, in the EV market, in the electric vehicle market, Elon Musk threw down the gauntlet. Elon Musk started discounting the prices of Teslas. And so what happened was other companies said, oh, crap, we got to match what Tesla's doing. So now all of them are competing to get consumers by dropping their prices. Well, who wins in that environment? It's the girl in the middle. We're the pretty girl in the middle. The consumer is, right? Everybody's competing for you. And that's what you want. You want a bidding war. Anytime there is a negotiation, when an artist, a musical artist, is being represented and they're negotiating for a contract, the manager, if they're smart, they try to create a scenario where there's a bidding war, because then everybody's going to try to outdo each other and the person in the middle is going to win. What you don't ever do, you never do, what you don't ever do is give loyalty that has not been earned. Do you understand what I'm saying? You never give loyalty when it hasn't been earned. That is true for dating. That is true for business. That is true for politics. You make them earn that, right? So in fact, you know, I know people throw around terms like simp all the time, which is like an hilarious conversation because most of these guys even saying a lot of them are simps anyway. But if you were to define what might be a simp, it might be a guy who is giving everything, all his money, all his resources to a woman who don't even like him, who hasn't even earned his love. You know, so loving a woman is a good thing. If you find the right woman, you got to love her in the right way, or somebody's going to take her away from you. So you step up to the plate when you find the right woman. But do you really think that I treat every woman I've met like my wife? Do you think that any pretty girl, you know, big button, a smile, could get me to do the things for her that I do for my wife? No. My wife has proven herself. So that creates a level of commitment that is above and beyond anything that I have ever given to anyone else, right? So the same thing is true with politics. Make them earn it. Make them earn your love. You know, don't sell yourself cheap. Don't you know, show up with your self-esteem intact. Because you have something very valuable. You have the ability to decide if the Democrats or the Republicans are going to be in office. You negotiate with that. So, and if there's ever been a more important time to negotiate, I can't think of it. Right now, you're dealing with reparations. Man, that's an epic battle. That's what you do now, what we do in the next 5 years is going to play out in the Black community for the next 100 years. They will be writing about you in history books. Kids will be learning in the year 2105 what we did or did not do in the year 2023. They're going to be reading, watching movies about how we responded. And I want us to show up heroically. I want them to say, I'm so proud because they laid the foundation of something that is sustaining us 100 years after the fact. Right? That's what you do. Let me keep going. Let me move on. I'm gonna read a little bit more, and then we're gonna head out soon. First thing, some of you are asking, Dallas. I'll be in Dallas May 19th. If you want to come to Dallas for the Black Wealth Training Camp, go to boycewatkins.com. It's going to be centered around my book, The 10 Commandments of Black Economic Power. The training camps are also good to give you an opportunity to network, build investment clubs with other people, start businesses with other people, things like that. The beauty of it is that everybody in there is pretty much trained on the things that we talk about. So you're going to meet good people that you can connect with. Second of all, the All Black National Convention is happening October 20th through the 22nd in Atlanta, Georgia, at the Marriott Marquis Hotel. If you'd like to either apply to be a panelist or speaker, or if you would like to just get tickets or passes for your family, just go to my website, boycewatkins.com. That's all there. And in that book, The 10 Commandments of Black Economic Power, is available on Amazon, and also Dr. Claude Anderson's books. You can get them at powernomics.com. And really, that's the top of my priority. Like, I think that's the first thing everybody should do, is support Dr. Anderson. All right. So here on page 215, Dr. Anderson talks about the basis for a Black independent party. This is Powernomics, page 215. He says, Black Americans view political partisanship differently from white Americans. Black Americans believe in strong loyalty, even when no fixed quid pro quo exists. What did I just say to you? What did I just say is the cardinal sin of negotiation? You never give loyalty when it's not due. This is why Dr. Anderson's my man. I'm literally reading this sentence that is a reflection of exactly what I said to you all 3 or 4 minutes ago. I didn't know the sentence was here. He literally says that Black Americans believe in strong loyalty, even when no fixed quid pro quo exists. What he's basically saying is that you give yourselves up cheap. You're used to having loyalty when somebody has not earned it. We are political simps. We're seen as political simps. We don't earn respect. So let's keep going. White Americans believe in strong quid pro quo benefits with no fixed party loyalties. Whites will shift their party loyalties with the speed of light to get benefits. Blacks have shifted loyalties several times. From 1619 until 1865, Black people were enslaved and did not belong to any national political party. From 1868 to around 1936, most Black Americans belonged to the Republican Party, and they were subjected to Jim Crow segregation. From around 1946 until the present time, most Black Americans belong to the Democratic Party, and they have been neglected. Quite clearly, what counts is not the political party to which we belong, but the fact that we have never had enough political power to do anything within those parties. Clearly, there has been no visible and direct connection between Blacks supporting a national political party and receiving benefits from the party. In the mid-1980s, so what he's saying is that you've been voting like crazy, but you ain't getting nothing for your vote. Let me see here. In the mid-1980s, so-called progressive Democrats decided to shift the party away from Black people and the image that whites had the Democratic Party. That whites had of the Democratic Party as the party of Blacks. In a move that should have been seen as an affront to Blacks, powerful white Democrats created the Democratic Party away from Black people and to the center of the political road. The Democratic Party is in a conflicted situation. It is seeking middle-class white votes while still depending on the Black vote, even though the party is moving in a more conservative white direction. Both major political parties have demonstrated unwillingness to implement a Black agenda that provides material benefits to Black people. So the choice Blacks should exercise is to pull out of both parties and start an independent national Black party that practices the group-based politics of gaining resources. If you are dating one person and they're not treating you well, and then there's another person you could date and they aren't going to treat you well, then you should go off and be single for a while. You do not have to pick between the two options that are in front of you. That's what he's saying. Using Powernomics principles and strategies as the foundation for an independent political framework, Blacks will have a guide to structure any party in their own self-interest. When they are not tied to any of the major national parties, there are a number of activities for a Black independent party to consider to gain recognition, respect, and political power. First, this will be a vehicle to implement step number 9 above: boycott a national election. The new party can use the public platform to recruit membership. Second, Blacks, so he's saying boycott the national election. During the boycott, you say, oh, by the way, not only are we not voting for the Democrats, we're not voting for the Republicans, but this is where we're putting our vote. That's what he's saying. We'll be at our mother's house. First, this will be a vehicle to implement step number 9 above. Second, Blacks should establish a national planning committee made up of academicians and other Black stakeholders to build upon the base concept of a self-sufficient and competitive Black America. A number of committed Blacks began the framework for a political party at the National Black Political Convention movement that was held in Gary, Indiana in 1972. This effort did not get off the ground at that time because too many Black attendees believed in the Democratic Party and the integration dream. So, you know what I'm thinking? God just sent me an email, and he wired it to my brain. And I'm gonna read this email. This email says, "Dear Boyce, I need you to get off your butt, and I need you to form this committee at the All Black National Convention. And because one of the things that we've done at the convention is we've made it real clear. One of our policies is that we don't care what political party affiliation you're connected to, as long as you're Black first. Right? We've always said that, and that's been something we've stuck to, and it's created very positive energy. We've attracted a lot of really brilliant people, some very wealthy people. We have billionaire Mike Roberts at the convention last year. Larry Miller, the former CEO of the Air Jordan brand, he took Michael Jordan's brand to being what it is now. He's the one that made all the billions with Air Jordan. He came to the convention. So there are so many people who have power, resources, intellect, skill that are 100% B1. I think about people. I texted today. I had a text conversation with Nuri Muhammad, brother Nuri Muhammad, just one of the greatest Black leaders on this planet. And I just really think that you have so many people that have not just the intelligence to implement a policy. The intelligence is part of it, but it's sort of a mixture of a lot of things. You have to have the intelligence and the skill. Skill is actually pretty prevalent in the Black community. You have a lot of skilled Negroes out here. The problem is that if you have intelligence and skill, but you don't have courage and commitment to the Black community, then it won't work, right? So a lot of us, we get our intelligence and our skill, and we're committed to applying that intelligence and skill to building institutions for other people. We apply it to our job. We apply it to some political party. We apply it to other people's ideas and not our own, right? So I think that the mix would require intelligence, skill, courage, commitment. So you're not afraid to shoot the gun. You know how to aim the gun. You know how to develop a proper weapon. And then what else am I thinking here? Oh, and also you got to be a good person that can work with other people. And so really I'm thinking in terms of people that I know, and there's some others that come to mind, but Nuri Muhammad comes to mind because Nuri ain't scared of nobody. Nuri is smart as a whip. Nuri has a tremendous vision for the community, and Nuri is 100% B1, 100% Black first. So this is my way of just in a stream of consciousness publicly endorsing his leadership. And not that there aren't others. There are others out there, and I would mention them if they came to mind, but I'm not going to be distracted on this because I want to get back to the book. But that template of having some sort of planning committee is something that I want to work on. I want to mention this out loud so that when it does occur, when we start announcing it and we're putting things together, you'll kind of understand what direction we're trying to go. The more I read what Dr. Anderson's writing, and in the context of thinking about this reparations conversation, in the context of realizing we got this national election coming next year, and the shenanigans are on the way, I think that we can we literally have the opportunity to make Black history by doing something that hasn't been done in a very long time, maybe never in this country. So that's what I'm going to be working on, and I think the convention's a great place to get that done. I think we're ready to go ahead and load up the rocket and go to Mars on this. So let me keep reading here. He says, third, while the Black Party is building, we must be realistic. Black politicians and leaders will not eagerly jump ship and lose their positions in the political parties until it is clear that the new Black Party is strong. They will need some flexibility, but Black people will seek accountability. There is value in the leaders continuing to affiliate with the major national parties for a while. They must declare their commitment to Black causes and their intent to join the Black Party. They can practice being Black and change direction while negotiating benefits for Black America. When the new party is ready, those who choose should become part of it. 4, after the Black Party is operational, Blacks should direct their efforts to register Blacks as independents within a Black Party. 5, Blacks then inform both the Republican and Democratic parties that they will vote as a solid bloc for their own candidates or party. Or in the absence of a Black candidate committed to the Powernomics vision for Black America, they will vote for candidates or party that promises to deliver the most. 6, Black voters should not identify or announce the candidate they will support for public office until a few days before the election. With that strategy, it is not only likely that the block vote will be taken for granted. 7, Blacks should place candidates for public office on the ballot in all key states. 8, Blacks should run strong Black candidates to compete against the other national parties. And finally, Blacks should always vote as a bloc. That's a big vision there. A lot to think about. A national Black party would give Blacks a strategic and competitive advantage over the established national parties. Black candidates can run and win a national office from an independent party. Voter apathy, both Black and white, is at an all-time high. Less than 50% of those eligible to vote actually do so. The fastest growing voter categories in America are independent and non-affiliated. A recent poll showed that 36% of the electorate in 1992 would have voted for Ross Perot, a candidate for an independent party, if they thought he had a chance to win. In major elections, Black candidates would be major contenders. If Blacks committed to register, turn out, and vote at 3 times our current rate, similar to Jewish voters, Jews are approximately 3% of the national population, but they come out and vote at a rate that is 3 times greater than any other group. Blacks could have a similar impact if we use the same strategy. Blacks make up approximately 12.4% of the population. In national elections, majority white voters split their 80% voting populations between the Democrats and Republicans, Reform, and Green parties. Normally, only 25% of Blacks who are eligible actually vote. If all things were equal, each party would receive 20% of the votes cast. If all Blacks were members of the National Black Party, and if they registered and voted at 3 times their normal pattern, they would have a major impact on any election. Blacks would get another benefit simply because the existing national parties would be concerned about the potential impact of a Black independent party on an election. They would either court Black voters with more serious intentions of practicing quid pro quo, or they would eliminate some of their existing national parties. Either way, a national Black bloc vote and a Black independent party could serve to highlight our views and give us the benefit of ethno-aggregation in politics. Last paragraph, he says here on page 218, Powernomics. This powernomics.com. That's Dr. Anderson's website. Give me 1 second here, and then we're going to read that last little piece. Hold on. All right. Once the Black Party is established, it should host its own political conventions, especially for the election of the President of the United States. These conventions should be scheduled for the month of June, prior to both the Republican and Democratic conventions, perhaps to commemorate Juneteenth. Juneteenth celebrations relate to the day Blacks in Texas got the news about the Emancipation Proclamation. Increasingly, Blacks are celebrating that historical event as a national holiday. A convention for an independent party would have the competitive advantage of coming before the other parties, laying a foundation for national issues and setting a political tone. Most Black elected officials and civil rights leaders will be reluctant to identify with or attend any Black Party activities because both groups are locked into the Democratic Party. With or without them, Black Americans have little choice but to press on in their own best interest. Oof, that's a lot, right? So shout out to Dr. Anderson for giving us a direct blueprint on how to move forward politically. I've been given a lot to think about today. I'm going to go process some of this, and I'm going to hit up some of my friends. And I promise you, at the All Black National Convention, this will be part of the discussion. This will be part of the plan. And I don't want to say too much more because I am talking in the public forum, and I know that the feds are always watching. So I'm going to go ahead and stop talking right there. What I am going to ask you to do is, if you haven't done so yet, or if you're thinking about doing so again, powernomics.com is Dr. Claude Anderson's website. All of his books are there. You have everything you need to educate your kids on Black history at a very high level, or educate yourself. Also, one of the things my wife and I did when we got married was we gave away copies of Powernomics to everybody at the wedding, because that's what we're all about. That's how we roll. That's what we believe in. So if you have it and some extra resources and you want to support an important institute in the Black community, I hope you'll go to powernomics.com, get extra copies of Dr. Anderson's books, and just give them away to whoever will listen. Create book clubs in your own community. I created this book club to inspire you. I'm hoping that you'll do the same thing, that you'll get together with your friends and family and literally just read it page by page. Remember, this book, Powernomics, was referred to, I think, by Ebony Magazine as the economic Bible for Black people. So the same way we get together and we have Bible study, I think we should have Powernomics study, right? Because this should be kind of fundamental for the Black community. So anyway, we're going to finish up for tonight. We're going to have Powernomics Wednesday again, next Wednesday, 8:30 p.m. Eastern time. If you go to BoyceWatkins.com, if you're not yet in the book club directly inside the Zoom, you can just go to BoyceWatkins.com and sign up for free. Also, I'll be in Dallas May 19th. So if you'd like to join us for the Black Wealth Training Camp, we're going to spend 2 straight days going through specific fundamentals of building legacy levels of wealth, also networking, things like that. So you can join us. Just go to boycewatkins.com. Information's there on that. And also the All Black National Convention, same thing. Go to my website, boycewatkins.com. There's information there. They have a list of AI stocks you can look into if you're interested in stock market investing. There's a ton of stuff up there, so feel free to go take a look. All right, everybody. Well, have a good night. I'm going to go hang out and eat some chicken with my mama. I love y'all, and I'll see you next time. Take care now. Bye-bye.